Okay. Right. Well, yeah, we'll maybe officially start in a few minutes. Do you have any questions related to AI? Just on anything? Anything in general? Do you feel like you have a firm grasp of, what Gen AI is, what its capabilities, and what it could do for you in the future? Now, I've seen your apps, right? I think you demonstrated that last week. But do you have any like general questions related to AI?
I don't know. I've got general questions. It's just for me, it's a matter of practice, getting used to it, using it more. I mean, that's all the IT staff in our building are also teachers. So trying to learn anything, manage IT and teach at the same time is, you're playing catch up in all three areas. So
Right. And in some ways, AI could help with that. Hopefully, help you instead of giving the additional burden of, oh, now I gotta learn this too. Um, okay. See. And how about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I was just thinking of what my questions are at this point. Probably I have two. Um, One of the questions is I just I need to look more. I don't really have a clear understanding of the environmental impact of AI
Oh,
and
yeah.
what actually is occurring and whether for example, water is um, really being used up to cool all these servers down, or is it just getting recycled and then evaporating and moving around to other places where it normally wouldn't go? So I kind of like just have some ambiguity on the true environmental impact. And then number two is like I have just kind of been creating whatever I can think of in various platforms, Gemini, Lovable, Claude,
Mm,
and it just occurs to me that, and then I even saw during the Super Bowl, I don't know if you guys watched, but there were a couple of commercials that were really all about creating applications and using Claude or whatever the other ones were to do that. And it just suddenly occurred to me, if someone like me can create this kind of stuff, everybody can. And I just suddenly realized that applications, like apps, and the marketing and selling of apps is just going to disappear. I mean, everybody can do it. And so there will be no such thing as like, oh, hey, I built this app and made millions of dollars. It's on the App Store. You can buy it. Well, instead of the buying it, I'll just get my own AI to create my version for
right.
pennies on the dollar. Um, and so I just, I don't know what the landscape is going to look like,
Mm,
even a couple of years from now. Um, and yeah, who knows? Maybe that'll even change. Maybe in 2 years there'll be AI agents that create stuff for me without me even having to tell them what I want because they're listening or something. I don't know. It's kind of a wild west, and I'm excited by it. Um, and I'm excited by the ability to finally be able to create things that I want without knowing anything about coding.
exactly. And those are the topics that I was gonna go over today. So I am gonna go over today. So great. That's great that you're interested in those things. In terms of energy usage or water usage, like at minimum, just a simple prompt. We're not talking about deep research or in image or video generation. Of course, those will take up more. About 8 to times more compared to a simple Google query or search. So if you're just asking a simple question and ChatGPT is giving you like the quick response, yeah, 8 to 10 times energy use, including water. So yes, it does harm environmentally, and we are going to talk about that because today, what we're going to do is like, if you want to share your vibe coding projects, we could do that. We could go over those things too. But I'll take a moment to maybe zoom out of everything. So even further out than Sean talked about, and then also zoom in quite a bit so that maybe I could give you some practical tools or practical tips that you could use in terms of using AI for productivity and to administer and to teach classes. So that's the agenda for today. And hello, Ben, welcome. Do you have any questions, just general questions or things that you're still curious about or interested in?
Hmm. No, I don't know many questions, but I was one of the things that I've been fascinated in using AI for, and that we've actually talked to a few specific companies about, is helping with our master schedule. It would just, I was just wondering if I would input some of the spreadsheets and some of the data we use to complete our master schedule, and just with ChatGPT, not even a specialized tool that I've even created through Vibe coding, it already can do most of what we've taken a lot of time to do. And so I'm fascinated to work with that a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, like we've already said here, the possibilities are endless, but it makes me really excited as a time saver.
Definitely double-edged sword there, right? It's exciting because it's very efficient and very productive. On the other side, lots of jobs, business opportunities for those companies that used to consult. So that's sort of what's happening with AI. Yeah, that totally agree. But to me, I'm also very excited about possibilities more so than the downside of things. Um, all right. Do any of you want to share, like in the past week, if you sort of continue to work on your Vive coding projects, and you want to screen share and share your project? Go ahead, Thomas. You should be able to screen share.
Okay. Um, let's see. All right, so I'll share something that I was just sort of finishing up today. I decided to play around with Gemini just because our school has access to the Google Suite and the Google AI Studio. Um, and I did have to give a credit card in order to have access to, I was learning some new terms like APIs, just like the little key that gets you access to this specific mode of AI use. And so, as the department chair for the World Languages Department, when I first saw ChatGPT years ago, I had this like immediate picture of a little digital version of myself, just kind of listening alongside me as I taught and recording the class, kind of just listening to the class, and then being prompted to give follow-up activities like right away for the class that we just had. And so I decided to try to create that in Gemini, and I got a pretty decent result. I have now this little program that can listen to a class in uh, Latin, Spanish, French, Chinese, or even English. Could be used in any classroom, really. And all it does is just um, listen to the class. When you click on it, it starts recording. It doesn't record audio, it just transcribes the audio. As you can see down here, it's transcribed a bunch of French. I was just sitting in the French room. And then I have little follow-up activities loaded in um, that it will create based on the text that it has transcribed, which is the the class that was happening. And I just tried it out in my own Latin class about 45 minutes ago without the students knowing.
Mm.
And it was giving really good little follow-up um, exercises that I had actually forgotten about in my repertoire of language teaching. Um, and sort of reminded me of a couple things that I hadn't practiced in a number of years, just really simple stuff. And so that was really helpful. I used it in class in the moment. And so this was kind of back and forth with Gemini last week. I think you mentioned Canvas, and I had not used it, which is the the creative tool that is able to code and things like that and build these apps. So um, yeah, so that was just something new that I did in the last week.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you find the language to be pretty accurate, the translation and the transcribing?
Yeah, so I do a lot of spoken Latin in class, and so it's really helpful. And it took me a while to kind of hone that in because it got a tiny bit complicated because I had to get access to a specific API, which
Right.
is called in the Google universe of AI tools, it's called, I think it's just like speech to text. And it's
Mhm.
very good at identifying what language is being spoken and transcribing it well. And that was the hardest part because I had to get access by giving it a credit card, but it's a free trial, but they needed my credit card, so I had to go to administration and get that because they wanted me to play around with it. So um, yeah, application programming interface. I always forget what it means, but what it
On
really
the
just stands for is kind of a key that gives you
right.
access to this specific tool in the Google universe. But it was very good at transcribing even classical Latin, which is not a spoken language. It did it almost perfectly. There were a couple of little blips. So I think it's probably going to be really good for the other languages too.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, API is just it's just to pull like anytime you used for example log in with Google or log in with Meta slash Facebook, that's all API. Or anytime you have anything embedded from somewhere else, let's say YouTube video on your school website, but you're not using your own server, you're using Google's, right? So you're just pulling that information from another server, and so that's what API really is. So yeah, that's that sounds great. Let's see. Randy, welcome. We're just asking if anyone wants to share anything you have created um, using Vibe coding. And Alex, welcome too. Anyone else want to share your creation? Or even if it's not complete, like even if it's like in progress, still fine. Any volunteers? Because you otherwise you're gonna hear me or have me do some boring things, right? Because I'll be talking a lot about AI and some technical things too. Now I don't know if someone here is has technical background, but I'll be talking a little bit about that today because like I told you, we're gonna like sort of zoom out and see what does this mean, where are we headed. I think that's important to know, and then zoom in and see, here's some key things that you could use like immediately.
Sam, I mean, I showed mine last week, and I haven't had time to do much further than what I'd done before, and was still trying to figure out the workaround of running out of tokens. I've kind of got that down, but I didn't know if you knew anything about because it's I've been working in Claude. Didn't know anything about Claude Cowork and how that
Yeah.
works and what increased functionality I can get with that. I just had another guy that works in tech. He was telling me, "Oh yeah, I've started using Cowork," and I went, I don't I don't know what that is." And we were watching the Super Bowl at the same time, so I didn't get much input on that.
And Cloud had their commercials in Super Bowl. The 30-second slot was it like $8 to $10 million for 30-second commercial slot, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, so Cloud Cowork is it was a very, very big deal. And I will talk about that. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit. Um, just as actually a little bit of side question, and then kind of related to the topic that I'll be talking about. Do any of you keep track of your investment? Like 401k or school has its own thing, right? Do you ever look at stock, anyone invest in stocks or things like that? Yes, more or less. All right. So if you notice in the past about what week or so, last Wednesday, Thursday, especially, that's when the market dropped significantly, right? Particularly around software. You're talking about, Google, Microsoft, to Adobe, like all, I'm pretty sure you all used Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. Maybe one of the things you learned in the past was to how to use Photoshop to edit photos, or edit videos, right? All those software stocks went down significantly because of the fear of things like Claude's Cowork, because now it's like there's a panic that, wait, what's going to happen to all this like software companies? And this sort of to Thomas's point before, um, if you could create your own software, like when it comes to say accounting or filing your taxes to legal documents, well then what is the use of all these things like Adobe, for example? I mean, you're already using AI to edit images. So that's what happened in the past week. And so you saw a significant sort of disappearance of market cap. And it's just, if you just go into like Google stock or Microsoft stock, you'll see that. Another thing from that is, well, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. One of the classes that I teach all the way from elementary to adults, like I teach locally with continuing ed, is called Geopolitics, Economics, Technology, and Investment. So really looking at the world, through where sort of the following the money and policies, government policies, geopolitics, because that sort of helps you give an idea of where things are headed, right? When you have, sort of money going in, like investment going in, along with, governments like push and policy, or easing of regulations, that's where you see like things happen. And so in AI, that's what's happening right now. So these big tech companies from Microsoft, just four companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta, reported earnings in the past week or two. Do you know, just a side question, do you know how much they said they will spend on AI this year, those four companies combined? This is Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, four companies. Any random guesses? Just this year on AI spending.
100 billion.
100 billion. All right, Michael, good guess. Anyone else? It's higher than that. Those four companies. They will collectively spend, projected to, and chances are it's going to go over that, $650 billion. Just those four companies. And so and then when you look at the current administration and what, especially with the China-US tensions and what's happening in the world, there's significant push towards AI. So in terms of, okay, so how will AI look like? For example, I'm getting training on like how to vibe code and how do you use Gemini and Claude. Well, what would that look like in a year or two? It's going to be massively or significantly better than it is today, just based on sheer amount of, I guess, investment going into this. So yeah, $650 billion CapEx spending projected for this year. And that's one of the reasons why all those companies' sort of stocks went down. And on the flip side, the semiconductors or these companies that support like hardware to these companies, like for example, NVIDIA, have gone up recently. And that's going to be the trend. So, just one thing to note, are you familiar with a company named NVIDIA? NVIDIA, yes, the number one market cap company in the world as of today, worth about what, $5 trillion. They came up with, are you familiar with Hopper, like AI Hopper architecture? So they have this what's called GPU, and I'm sure you know what CPU is, right? Intel, like maybe you went through Intel Inside, Pentium processor, 486, Pentium if that rings any bell, right? Maybe 20 years ago. So they make what's called graphic processing unit. Usually was used for video games, like 3D video game graphics. Um, well, they provide chips to sort of this architecture to train AI, right? And so they are the best in the world in putting together tech. Oh, hello, Laura. Just talking a little bit about tech a little bit. Um, but they're the number one in the world in terms of having this GPU that is used to train. And right now, it's also to like use. It's not just used on training, but also on inferencing at the moment. Um, anyway, uh, their older version is called Hopper system. That's already like 2, 3 years old. That is the AI that you're using right now. A lot of it is based on Hopper architecture. Um, so all the things that you're using right now is primarily based on that. Think about ChatGPT. When did that really launch? ChatGPT. About what, 3 years ago or so, right? That's when like there's pre-ChatGPT and then post-ChatGPT world, right? So post-ChatGPT world, that's been about 3 years. It takes about anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 years for data centers to be up and running, right? You could also think about AI equals data center, and then I responded Thomas' question with my answer. How much electricity or water are we spending compared to, let's say, searching something on Google? We're spending a lot because we're accessing things that have been trained through data centers, and it takes about 2 to 3 years. NVIDIA came up with the next sort of version after Hopper called Blackwell. And that's about 2 to 5 times more compute power compared to the previous version. And you're going to see that sort of up and running and being operational this year. So that compute power going from times 2 to times 5 this year is going to happen. And then they're already producing or manufacturing the next version, which is called Rubin. And that's already out. They're already manufacturing there. So it's going to take maybe another year or two for it to sort of go up. So I don't know if you are familiar with Moore's Law. The founder of Intel came up with what's called Moore's Law, which meant every 2 years, computing power will double. And that has mostly held true. And for the most part, until very recently. So like, when you have your iPhone, you have new iPhone coming up, you have better camera, you're able to do more things with your new phones and so on. Well, with AI, that's what you're going to see. So if you think right now, wow, this is like amazing, the AI could do so much, wait till later this year. That's where you're going to see a big significant leap in its capability. And so yeah, you are going to see a lot more of what AI could do. And to answer, I think Scott's, I guess, I don't know if that was a question, but one other thing with Cowork is that, or any of these like what's called agentic AI, is that with ChatGPT, Gemini, what you're doing is you're going into the browser. You're going into chatgpt.com or gemini.google.com to access it, or you're opening up your app or Atlas browser, right? That's how you access it. What those things are doing, it's essentially sitting on top of, it could be an application. So are any of you used to PowerPoint, using Microsoft PowerPoint, spreadsheet, or Excel spreadsheet? It could reside on top of that. So when you're doing things there, hey, let's update our slide. You could do that directly within PowerPoint instead of going to ChatGPT asking for, oh, let's just come up with, some slides, come up with some images and I'll copy and paste it over here, or have it generate its own images or its own slides, but it's not going to be PowerPoint. You might be able to download it, right? But then you're not accessing these things directly on PowerPoint. Well, with Cowork or these agentic AI, they're living on top of these other software, not just your browser. So it could do a lot more. And so it's really like it's really having someone sitting next to you and saying, "Hey, this is how you do your spreadsheet. How you could do average and sum, and then you could do those things, or how you could filter things out on your spreadsheet." So it's like having someone right next to you do that. And I think Sean did talk about Clawbot, right? The Moltbot, Clawbot. You've heard of that, right? Um, it's actually sitting on top of your operating system. So that's even much higher level, meaning it's no different than you accessing your computer. Meaning you could open, close account, you could transact with, credit card, you could buy things, you could do really anything with your computer. So that's AI living on top of your computer versus AI living on like top of different software. Right now, it's primarily in a browser, right? Most of you just access it through Chrome or Safari or whatnot. So that is the difference. So right now the trend is to have AI reside on a much more higher level. That means access to more data, more things. That's where we're trending towards. Was that to any questions on that? Any thoughts? So yeah, I mean, basically just to some data is that if you're surprised by what AI could do right now, probably later this year when like the Blackwell architecture sort of it's really up and running, you're really going to see a major leap in computing power and AI's capabilities. Okay, all right. So actually, so I'll pause there for a second because we have some new people who joined us. Anyone have any vibe coding projects that you want to share? Anyone else? Or have any questions?
Sam, I was curious in your classrooms, what has been the engagement like as far as students working with AI? Like, have you personally just seen the engagement like a bit more like students when you go to use these AI tools?
Ooh, that depends. I teach, the classes I teach are very, I think, specific and different. So might get a different answer in other classes, but I teach things like entrepreneurship, digital marketing, AI, geopolitics, technology, investment class, or financial literacy classes. So those are very like elective, like those are pretty much electives in most schools. So my, I think, answer would be a bit different. But yeah, like for example, today I got students well, I taught an online class, and then in that class, that was a marketing class. I got students to brainstorm in small groups in breakout rooms, and they were supposed to come up with like an instruction or prompt for to use on AI for a hypothetical business that I have come up with. And so the first step was like absolutely no AI, and then let's come up with your business idea, your strategy. And we're talking about social media marketing. So they were coming up with some ideas. And then we got them to sort of interact with AI as a next step. And then their assignment is to use AI to come up with creative content. Um, and so in that case, I think they're quite um, they're quite skilled in using AI, I would say. Most of those, students were, they all, I think over 90% of them had either ChatGPT or Gemini account. Um, and so they were quite already sort of first in what they need to do. But yeah, just going over prompting or how you could use AI to do more is sort of like what we've been focusing about. And when we do that, oh, I also pulled that same class at the end of the first semester. And that was the entrepreneurship class. And I think 90% of them said, we want to do more with AI. We want to learn more with AI. Yeah, that's AI was like the most the topic of like the most like interest in that class. So yeah, I think it definitely increased engagement in some ways, and also when I look at individual work, I am beginning to notice more AI usage in individual work. We try to clearly outline on each assignment whether AI is allowed on this or not. But I think generally speaking, I think a lot of students are at least accessing AI to maybe do the first draft or get the initial idea. So that's what's happening. Oh, if anyone else wants to, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
A quick question and thought, and I'm curious everyone's thoughts and opinions as well. Something that I've been trying to think about. Has anyone read Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick? A friend of mine and I read that recently. Does anybody know Ethan Mollick? So he's a professor at Wharton Business School. Highly recommend his book. He's been a pretty vocal educator on AI and things of that nature. So it's called Co-Intelligence. He wrote it, I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago, and even at the very beginning acknowledges that, similar to what Sam said, the AI that we're currently using is probably the worst version of the AI that we will be using. Anyway, one point of his book in particular that I thought was interesting and presents a unique educational challenge, and even in a handful of conversations I've had with computer programmers, is that student access to information is going to be even easier than it has been with Google, right? And so the question then becomes, how do we instill or convince students to do the hard work necessary to become an expert at something? And even that term expert, what does it mean to be an expert or not be an expert, et cetera, right? And the example that I thought of, and I think he thought of it, and I've just been using it a lot. If you've ever tried to make a picture with AI, I don't know if anyone has. I have a couple times. I don't know nearly enough art history to like accurately represent what I want the image to look like versus someone who, let's say, majored in art history and knows the difference between a Van Gogh and a Monet and a Monet and things of that nature, right? And so I've just been trying to meditate on, I'm curious people's thoughts on how do we get students, and then in a similar vein, but slightly different for computer programming, a guy that runs a business, he's noticed a trend that because AI can do so much coding, if the people that he gets applying to his job don't have a certain base level of understanding to know if the AI is outputting something correct or not, then it makes it that much harder for them to then like do the work productively. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm talking in circles, but basically my question to everyone is, how do we teach students to have, and this is I think the hardest part, is a subjective level of base mastery of certain core competencies that allow them to leverage AI to its maximum capacity versus not having core competencies that prevent them from, for example, asking good questions. And where does that line exist? And maybe it's impossible to set where that line is, but I'm just curious, especially Sam, because I know your students use AI pretty frequently in class. And so I'm curious your thoughts and anyone else's as y'all think about that.
Anyone want to respond to that question?
I don't know that I have an answer, but it's yes to all that. I think some of the topics that we've already discussed and here, and I'm really interested to read that book. I put it on my list on Goodreads already, so appreciate that, Michael. No, I mean, I think just the opportunity for like really poor, sloppy work is as possible, or maybe more possible than really great work, and it's only with the core competencies that we're going to be able to equip students to do good work and build God's kingdom. And so like there's a lot at stake, and I can only imagine, as Sam talked about, with all the investment in AI by these companies, like those polarities in using AI are only going to grow further apart, like with the right learning and with the right tools, and as Christian institutions with the right discernment and lens and appetite for God's kingdom, like leveraging this is huge. But without those core things, it's hollow. And I think, one of the things I was talking about with there's a student teacher who was interviewing to come here, and was just I think the opportunity for real, genuine, authentic work is going to be, in some ways, I don't know, even at more of a premium with all the opportunity for sloppiness. So I don't know what those core competencies are going to be and how they're going to shift yet, but like, I guess yes to all that, Michael. I think that's a really great point.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone else? Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what Ben said too. And for me, I think whether it's my school class or as a parent and raising three kids, it's kind of the same thing. I think in my opinion, I think schooling will have to change because of AI. I think one thing that AI does really, really well is personalization, meaning you could learn at your own pace, at your own level, on sort of using the things that you're interested in to really get you immersed into learning environment. That's something we just cannot replicate in any setting other than one-to-one. And so I think the teacher's role or class or what you're doing in class, I think that needs to change. I think teacher's role should be more of facilitator, mentor, someone who inspires and motivates, and also uh, just really in Christian in our school, like talk about God, and that that's the teacher's role. I think delivery of or mastery of specific let's say academic content. I know, I mean, I do agree that it is important, but I don't know how far you could go with that. As long as you have, I think it's more again interpersonal skills. As long as you have that curiosity, you could learn anything out there. Like right now, one thing you could do on ChatGPT, you could watch Coursera classes, right? In Coursera, you could pretty much learn anything, right? Anything from math to language to uh, nuclear physics, right? Um, what ChatGPT has a feature where you're watching the Coursera video, right? It's self-paced learning, and so you have lots of incomplete, like the complete uh, completion percentage for Coursera courses are very, very low because it's self-driven and there's just really no motivation there, right? But you could use ChatGPT to watch it with you, and you could pause video and then say, "Hey, what did this professor just say?" Or can you give me sample questions based on what he just said? So as long as you have the drive and the motivation, there's just, with AI especially, you could really learn anything. So I think just the role of teachers in schools would have to shift, where you're being more of a facilitator and guide and giving real world references. You're talking about your personal experiences and trying to make these human connections. I think that's what has to be focused on rather than any, let's say, academic let's say competency, like specific academic competencies. One of the things that been talked about these days is like a couple of things. Universal basic income is one. Um, and I think, I mean, just we'll definitely take it with grain of salt what anything Elon Musk says. But one of the things he's talking about is like, well, I think working in the future or schooling in the future is going to be more of a hobby thing or optional thing, particularly with where we are headed with AI. And like him plus NVIDIA CEO are sort of at the very, very forefront of where everything's sort of moving towards. So, whether we agree or not, that's just happening. And so, anyway, that's just my thought. I don't want to sort of, I didn't mean to go on and on with that. Um, but I think and that's why I think, Christian schools, have a place because, we're more than just delivering, lectures or, academic content. Like, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, another similar, but I'm curious in the just like reading of events and news and things of that nature. I have a weekly prompt set up for Gemini to send me like five relevant articles, specifically on K-12 education and things of that nature. Highly recommend the auto task feature, everybody, for whatever you want, sports, etc. Um, but one of the things that it mentioned, and I'm curious anyone's thoughts, but your thoughts as well, Sam, the shift for schools in particular, going from using these generalized or general large language models like Gemini, ChatGPT, et cetera, to more specific ones. So I think what I'm curious about is if the larger players in the field, like the Googles, Anthropic, et cetera, are going to start having subsidiary silos of like this is their education specific department or this is their programming department. And what I mean by that is the training data specifically being siloed to if I'm using this in a school setting, I would want peer-reviewed articles. I would want like a box around what they have access to in terms of content. Do you think that the large companies are going to do that, or you feel like that's a space where smaller companies, I'm not even sure if they can, have the money or resources to have enough training data to make something specific? So, like, I think I heard this, and this might be wrong, but like schools like Stanford or things of that nature are trying to start training their own models so that they have a Stanford LLM or a Dartmouth LLM, et cetera. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that, or anyone.
Yeah, if anyone wants to answer that. I mean, I think it's all about when you do AI, it's just AI equals data. So if you are a place with, Stanford or Dartmouth with enormous amount of data, whether that's, papers to, if you could have all that as a data point, then that's possible. If you don't, there's not much data for AI to be trained on. Um, and so I think these larger companies, they will continue to provide API. So I think CloudBot also works that way too. You could pull API and then put sort of like walls or something around it, right? Some sort of guardrails around it. That is possible, but to have your own AI is again, how are you going to, do you have enough data to train, right? I think that's where it comes down to. So it might work for Stanford, but I think for most institutions, that would be very, very hard thing to do. And also very, very expensive thing to do as well. One thing that Claude, the news came out, do you know how Claude is really good at writing? Do you know why they're really good at writing?
They, if I'm correct, I just listened to this yesterday.
Yeah.
They illegally took like hundreds of professors' work from Dartmouth in their training data in order to train it, and they just settled for like $1.5 billion, but now they have to like resettle because they don't think that it was enough money. Is that what you're talking about, or is that a different thing?
I think there was one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't referring to that one because there's a larger one on top of that. But they did it legally, but there was an issue about it for sure. They bought 2 million books, like physical books, and scanned every single page. They had this operation where, yeah, they scanned every single page of 2 million books, like physical books, right? It's a little bit different than trying to get things off of like internet. And so, yeah, when you are trained on, trained with 2 million, top books all around the world, you are probably going to write better than other platforms. So yeah, it's like when it comes to AI, it's going to be really all about data. Where are you getting the data, how the quality of data. And when you think about that, you're gonna see Google up there where they have the most data. Anything you search, just think about all your data points today, anything you did today. Whether you order something, whether you took navigation, went somewhere, or you opened up a file, email, all those are like data points. And I can't imagine a company that could overcome like Google or Microsoft in terms of data, or Amazon too, because Amazon and Amazon and Microsoft are number 1 and 2 in terms of cloud computing, and that's where they get all the data from. Anyway, I meant to show you like just a quick thing that one of the things, the practical thing you could do now, because I want to leave some time for feedback slash survey. So let me just quickly share something. Hold on a second, because I promised I would show you like some practical things you could do. So hold on a second. Can you see my screen? I just did a whole desktop sharing. Okay, great. And so I sort of kind of did this in advance a little bit, but this is like the prompt that I came up with. I asked it to come up with the prompt that I could copy and paste in this setting. So I just literally talked about what we're doing, and that I wanted to sort of go over the basis of AI, how it works, technologically speaking, and what things are, where we're headed, right? So I came up with that prompt to ask it to come up with the master prompt. So yeah, you could always ask I think Sean did this too, ask Google to come up with the prompt that you could use on another AI. So here is like a prompt that it came up with that I could use. So I could just copy that, and then I'm just gonna move that over to like a different ChatGPT, and then you know what? I want to save time, so I won't do extended thinking, but I'm going to send this here, right? And this is like the prompt, right? To come up with slides for what we're trying to do here, or actually what I'm trying to go over. So while that is running over there, I did do the same thing and paste it in what's called GenSpark, right? And this is what it came up with. Right? It went through like here, right here. This sort of like what I went through, and this is agentic AI. So it needs less sort of hand-holding or directions. It's able to do a lot of it on its own. And so GenSpark is an agentic AI. So well, actually, no, this already happened. So let me just do one thing quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Gemini, and let's see, I'm going to choose Canvas here, like I told you last time. I think it's coming up with what the session should look like. So a lot of details here. And then I asked it for a slide-by-slide blueprint. So that's what it's giving me, approximately 30 to 36 slides. So it's coming up with that. Right, while I was doing, actually, give me 1 second, because I did some of that here already, just so that I could save time, and I probably need to save time. So I'm going to copy what it gives you, and then I'll just say create Google slides based on the following, and I'm just going to paste that, and I'll have that running in the background. So I did sort of the same thing and did it here. And this is what it looks like, right? This is just purely off of that one prompt that I gave. Hey, let's come up with a prompt for another AI. So ChatGPT came up with a prompt that I could copy and paste into GenSpark, which is another like AI. This is agentic AI, and this is what it looks like. So we could just like skip through some of these. We don't have to go through all of these things in detail, but I don't know. What do you think of it? Again, I didn't instruct anything in terms of design. All I said was, this would be like a workshop for educators, and school administration and teachers will be here. And we're just really talking about AI. It's like an AI workshop, right? And I wanted to give a little bit of context and understanding of how things work, technologically speaking. And this is what it came up with. So yes, Michael.
I think I might have shared this in like the very first meeting or maybe second. I used GenSpark after I had to make a proposal defense for my first chapter of my dissertation. And I was very proud of the hard work I put in PowerPoint, like clicking and typing and etc. And then I put it into GenSpark and it blew my presentation out of the water. And so I think the benefit of this in a whole bunch of different ways, like I'm not sure, and I would be curious, Sam, if you tried to do math. Like I haven't tried to make slides for my math class or things of that nature, but like any professional development that you spend whatever, an hour, 2 hours making a slide deck in order to present something can now be done significantly quicker. Or if you are trying to, so like the applications are really just endless. And I was just looking for myself because I've only used GenSpark's free version. But their pro version is $25 a month with like 10,000 credits, I think, Sam. And roughly speaking, maybe you don't know the one-to-one, but like how many presentations would that make in a month?
I mean, this is like 30,
really working.
Pretty intense 36-page slide, as you can see here. This took up, let me see, I'll check. I was at 8,500, so 1,300-ish credit for to go through back and forth to create something like this. Or maybe it was a little bit less. I don't know what else I used to create. I always use this for class too. But anyway, this agentic AI, I just wanted to compare and contrast between this one and what Google just came up with. So I put the same prompt in Google, Gemini, and I could just click on export to slides. I think that is definitely one of the benefits because pretty much all schools use Google Suites. And you could export this directly into Google Slides. And let me just wait till it goes. Oh, by the way, in this progress, we are doing generative AI right now, but we just talked about agentic AI. And then the next part is physical AI. You are going to have sensors everywhere. Physical AI means robots, sensors everywhere. In China, I don't know if you heard about this, and this is a little, I think, too crazy, but what they're doing in China is they are putting headbands around students' head, and that measures like brain waves. And when students are not paying attention or they're thinking about something else, it lets the teacher know. Or when teacher is going over something, it lets them know real time how students are, like whether they're learning, engaged or not. So that's like too extreme in terms of using different sensors. But you are going to have smart system or cameras in classroom or different sensors that measures, right? Anyway, so this is what this is the Google's version. So if you've never done this, you could. This is what it came up with. Pretty good. Yeah, it still makes a little bit of error, like right here in terms of. Actually, this one. No, this box is like a little below the margin right here. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, right? Because once it creates, it's very easy for you to edit rather than doing this from scratch. So just that prompt gave me sort of all these things here that you could use, right? And Google has pretty good images because they have more images, right? Google Images. And yeah, this is like it created like a 30, was it? Let me just go through the end. It does pretty good job of putting resources at the end to image sources. So it gave me 33-page slide. And if you have never done this, one other thing you could do is you could click on beautify this slide. And what it does is, I don't know if you ever went through like time where, okay, you had to think about improving your slides or making it, aesthetically pleasing. Well, all you have to do is press, one button or describe here, like right here on the side, and it will generate the image for you. So here, there's this version versus this version. So I'll insert it as a new slide, just for comparison's sake. So that one was what it initially had versus like this one. So I mean, you could do this pretty easily. And one other thing that came out, and I'll do a quick thing. Have you ever played with this button here? Convert to video. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if you have slides and you want to share that with your team or your school, teachers, and you want to create a short, like a video on it, here's what I'll do. Maybe I'll go up to here and then I'll just click on import. And it does a pretty good job of, say, introducing, whatever concept you're teaching. So if you want to sort of do this, just take exact steps, Michael, to teach a math concept and create a video. You could also do voiceover. So it took less than a minute. And hold on a second. Let me just turn on my audio. 1 second. Do that. And here's the video.
Welcome to the AI Systems Thinking for Schools workshop. This content is practical, policy aware, and designed to be classroom ready for administrators and teachers. Our 90-minute roadmap will guide you from AI evolution to school implementation. We aim to master 6 core AI competencies and complete a tailored 30609 O-Day plan. The time to act is now. Adoption pressure is rapidly outpacing governance readiness. Intentional adoption is crucial to protect student well-being and reduce teacher burden, preventing fragmentation and inequity. Administrators define policy and manage data.
I'll pause there. if you have never used that, you could do that. And you could also play with this. You could do a voiceover. You could add things. You could upload things. You could add captions. You could add, different languages. You could do all of that like just in an instant. And so when you have this already, and I told you combining that with, what's going to happen in terms of hardware, where we're going to have significant upgrade in compute power. What does that mean? Well, I mean, I think, so just to be frank, I think learning vibe coding, I think is really good because it gets you to problem solve and gets you to think about different steps, right? And also have you imagine like the big picture. But at the same time, the vibe coding itself will probably go away. It's no different than learning Adobe Photoshop, right? That's like not a useful skill anymore, right? But I think it's really the process of using AI to think about what we're trying to do, and that goes for students too. Really just have like this sort of meta cognition and just having this like larger view and problem solving, I think is more important rather than the skill of, putting together video or slides, right? So anyway, I thought it would be helpful to see something practical, and you could just download this video. You could share this video too, and you could upload it straight to YouTube, and then so you don't even have to put it on a server. You put it on YouTube, and then make that unlisted, and then send the link to your students to watch. It's like instructional video. So if you're in Cancun and you forgot to upload like a lesson on let's say arithmetic multiplication, well, you could just create a tutorial video like this pretty quickly, right? Any questions or thoughts about this one? All right, so hopefully you got to see like a practical use of like AI and what it could do. And I do believe like Google was sort of you can't go wrong with staying with Google as a school because you're already using Google for email and Google Suites or Google Classroom. And it's just a lot easier like to collaborate because you're so used to it, like using Google Doc and Google Slides. And Google Doc also allows like Zero GPT has a plugin where what it will do is like when students share Google Doc with you, it will look at the probability of whatever the text having been written by AI or human. It will tell you that. So that, you can't necessarily base your decision like on AIs, but at least it could inform you, or at least go through the first round of like filtering. So a lot of cool tools are going to come out, and so again, half excited, half worried. And yeah, if possible, if time's like almost up, but if you could like complete the workshop survey, that would be great. Much appreciated. Michael, do you have anything else to say or ask?
No, I just want to thank everybody for your patience and stick-to-itiveness over these past 5 weeks. And I would just encourage you all, as I'm trying to encourage myself, to continue to be thought leaders in this space, because I feel like if we leave the thinking to OpenAI or Anthropic, the world is going to go in a very negative space. So I just encourage y'all to keep using it, and then also just praying for wisdom and discipline in not letting our own brains become brain rotted from using it. And so touching grass, as the kids say. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.